What's up, everybody? Welcome to Inside the Game, your one source for everything cool in video games. If you want to be a part of our show, then head to insidethegame.ca, where there you can submit your clip and end off our show. If you also want to be a part of the community, hit us up on Discord, YouTube, and Facebook. Of course, we're everywhere that you need to be. Now, coming up on this week's show, the guys are destroying all humans. We're talking about worms once again, and I interviewed Robbie from Omeda Studios to talk about their upcoming MOBA, Predecessor. Yeah, I can't wait for this game. So stick around and let's get started with the Inside Scoop.
So back in 2018, Rare released Sea of Thieves on Xbox and PC, and initially it definitely got some good reviews, but it was kind of empty as far as content's concerned, so you kind of had a limited playtime unless you just really love kind of the monotonous grind that this game had. Well, they've had numerous updates since launch, and I mean numerous. So many different updates, I couldn't even tell you exactly all the different stuff they've added in this game. But we've got pets, we've got megalodons, we already had a kraken, we're getting new islands. It's amazing all the stuff they've been able to add to this game in the last 2 years. And you know what? That's garnered a lot of attention because guess what? They just hit a huge milestone, 15 million players. 15 million players playing Sea of Thieves, 15 million pirates sailing the seas, having a good time. And you know what? They've added just a new release on Steam now. It's come out in June 2020. The game is available on Steam, and they've added over 1 million players on Steam just in June alone. They've added 3.3 million players in June total over all platforms. So I'm telling you, 15 million is just the start for these guys. They're only getting bigger, and there's going to be a new update dropping soon, Ashen Winds, and we're getting a new flamethrower skull weapon. So if you haven't jumped into Sea of Thieves yet, this is definitely the time to check it out.
So some big news from Hello Games, and this is in regards to No Man's Sky. Now, No Man's Sky has become All Man's Sky, as it has been recently added to the Xbox Game Pass. And with this, an increased number of 1 million plus players. Now this is huge. This game has crossplay, it's multiplayer co-op experience, it's a humongous game, unimaginably big is how big it is. And you get to explore different planets and different ships and stuff. So now, with the most recent expansion, Desolation, we actually get to explore the huge freighter ships. Now they're going to be full of loot and all sorts of goodies, so this is some pretty cool stuff. This game already has a ton, like I said, and just adding this for free is great. So thank you so much, Hello Games, and I can't wait to hop back in.
We were all waiting to find out what was coming to the Xbox Series X and from their first party lineup. Now, we got a hands-on look with the Xbox Game Showcase, and we found out why we're going to care about Xbox Series X this fall. Halo Infinite started off the event. We knew Halo was coming, but we weren't sure when it was going to be featured in the showcase. Well, they opened up with Halo event, showing off new features and the open world, bringing us something larger than twice the size of the previous games combined. The Halo Ring is our new land that we're going to be traversing in the open world, and it looks massive and beautiful. Followed up was State of Decay 3, kind of one of those secret hits that's in the background for Xbox, and people seem to be a cult following for the game. And now with State of Decay 3, this could be the one we've all been waiting for. Phil Spencer came on board to tell everyone that we're going to be featuring 9 of the 15 first-party studios throughout the showcase, leading us to understand that there will be another showcase in the future, hopefully revealing the rest of the games to follow. The best way to showcase any new console is by presenting it with one of the Motorsport series, and Forza Motorsport was there from turn 10, showcasing the 60 frames per second. After that, we saw Rare with Everwild. And then coming in August 27th, Chapter 1 from Dontnod's latest game, Tell Me Why. We saw the new look for DLC coming September 7th for The Outer Worlds, Peril of Gorgon. Grounded will be coming in game preview on July 28th. Obsidian Entertainment also showed off a little bit of their upcoming RPG, Avowed. Other titles that were featured throughout the event were A Dusk Falls, Hellblade 2, Destiny 2 coming to Game Pass, and also going to have Beyond Light featured on November 10th. Fat Shark gave us Warhammer 40k Darktide coming in 2021, and the big shock to Scott was Tetris Effect Connected coming this holiday 2020. The Gunk, The Medium, and Sega's Phantasy Star Online 2 will be coming, and we also got a sneak peek at Crossfire X Campaign. That looks impressive. Overall, the entire event of the Xbox Game Showcase was a blast. We saw 10 world premieres, 22 launch exclusives, and Scott and I were pumped. This was one heck of an event for Xbox, and I think something that they were looking for in the first place when they announced that they were going to be doing something like this, but only gave us third party. So it was nice to see this wrap up with a first party showcase, and we only saw 9 of the 15 studios in development what they were showcasing this time around, so know that there's going to be something else in the future. What that holds, we don't know, but Scott and I predicted one last thing, and that was Fable. We got it, and were we ever excited? We don't know much about the game, but we do know that's coming finally. Probably not till 2021 or 2022, but at least it's coming, and we can't wait. But if you want to see more of this recap of the overall event of Xbox Game Showcase, head to InsideTheGame.ca and watch the highlights where Scott and I have the whole event covered.
So recently in the news, it's all been about next gen PlayStation, next gen Xbox, the games we're going to be getting for it, the DualSense controller, the way the Xbox controller is looking. It's information all over the place with these next gens. And we've been focusing on the game side recently since Xbox had their game showcase, but I kind of want to refocus on a little bit of hardware. So we're getting a little information that Seagate, a popular PC parts manufacturer, actually really more into the storage side of things. They've made external hard drives for the previous Xbox consoles in the past, and now they're looking at their options for the next gen console, because we're getting a new style of SSD in this new Xbox. We're gonna have our internal hard drive, but we're also gonna have an expandable slot for an NVMe SSD card. And if that doesn't mean anything to you, if you're not a PC geek like a lot of us aren't, it is the fastest hard drive you can personally get right now for a PC. And let me tell you, being able to get that power in a console is going to give us a lot of things. And Microsoft has kind of hinted at the fact that we're going to be getting almost no load times for games, and any open world games, we're going to be seeing a lot more stutter-free gameplay. And that sounds to me like a pretty good deal, because, you know, seamless gameplay is what we're all looking for. So if this SSD is going to help, then I'm all for it. But there's a bit of a problem. We know that when you download games on your Xbox, especially if you're a Call of Duty fan, that these games can get fairly large. They can get pretty big as terms, you know, we're looking 100 gigs, 200 gigs for Call of Duty. And currently right now on the market, we can only get a 1 terabyte version of this NVMe SSD. And I mean, just like any PC thing, you know we're going to be getting larger storage as time goes on, but currently right now the only one available is 1 terabyte. And that kind of worries me, making me think that there's possibly going to be an issue with, you know, downloading games in the future. These next-gen games, I can't believe are going to be any smaller than what we're currently downloading. So if they get any larger, 1 terabyte gets used up really fast. And for me, I don't know if that's something I'm always going to want to manage. I mean, I had to get an external hard drive for my Xbox One just so I can, you know, not always be deleting games to fit new games on, because there's so many new games coming out. You kind of just want to keep that list growing and always be able to access them without having to re-download them every time. And being able to have another external memory card that slots into the back of your console is great, but if it doesn't give you enough room, then I don't know how worth it could really be. But it is really awesome technology, and I think the fact that we're able to even have this available for our consoles is huge. We're getting closer to that, you know, master race PC, and I think that's really what, you know, console gamers want. They want the most seamless experience possible, and I think Seagate's going to provide it. Currently, we don't have a price, and we don't have any clock speeds on this thing. All we know is that it's the fastest one you can get, and it's definitely going to be available for the Xbox Series X on launch, and we just don't know if Seagate's going to be working with Microsoft solely, because we haven't seen any other third-party options in this area, at least as of yet. So right now, Seagate's the only option, but they're definitely one of the best. So if you're looking for some more storage when you get that next-gen console, definitely check out Seagate's NVMe SSD.
So we got some really big news from the game developer Psyonix, the creators of Rocket League. Now, this game's been around for quite a while and has made quite a name for itself. So this news is pretty huge. This game is going free to play. Now, most people probably already own it, and hearing this, they might be kind of upset, but you have nothing to worry about because they're going to give you over 200 items and a few other things along with the legacy status. So this is a really nice kind of thank you for all the players who have been around for this long, and you get all the DLC as well for free. So later this summer, when this actually happens, the game will no longer be available on Steam, but instead will be available on the Epic Games Store. Now, this isn't much of a surprise because Epic Games, they bought them earlier last year. So this is some pretty huge news coming from Psyonix Games, and a huge thank you really to all the fans and the upcoming fans that they're going to bring. And another exciting thing too, just to finalize this exciting news, is that they're going to totally revamp the tournaments. And if you know Epic Games, they don't fool around with their tournaments. I'm imagining some really big prize pools and some exciting online tournaments.
All right, guys, we're going rogue.
No, you can't use the bathroom, and no, we don't have Wi-Fi.
We hear you carry only finest merchandise.
Welcome to E7, home to the world's most exclusive collection of top-tiered munitions. So, how can I help you?
All right, guys, you and I jumped into Rogue Company. This is a unique twist on a team battle game that I thought kind of caught us a little bit by surprise. We enjoyed our time with it, but there's kind of a couple complications. Nate, what do you think?
Well, man, this game kind of reminds me a lot of Counter-Strike. It has this, each round at a time elimination style, at least for the one game mode. There's two game modes, but we'll start with the kind of bread and butter one.
Sure.
Which is there's two bomb sites and there's an attacking and defending team, and it's 4v4. And it's very fast, where you can die within a few shots or one shot if you're playing against a sniper.
Yeah.
And it's cool. There's not a lot of games kind of like this, dare I say, on Xbox.
Sure.
Where it's like this kind of quick, fast pace, ability heavy weapon style gameplay.
No, absolutely. Scott?
Yeah, it feels a lot like Siege, but with the third-person perspective, and the map design is entirely different. So it feels, on paper we're describing it more and more, and it gets kind of into Siege territory. But that's not kind of how I feel the game works out, even with the abilities. Each character kind of just has like their own, active and passive, and that kind of dictates maybe the role on the team. But it's less team roles and more just kind of quick combat. It's cool though. You have the Counter-Strike at the beginning of every round. You have to buy your equipment, so that's absolutely straight out of Counter-Strike. and it's good. There's a first to 7 rounds, I believe, is the winner of the main game type. And then there's a second game type that kind of plays out like Battlefield, where you control a point on the map and drain enemy tickets. And that was kind of cool too. But yeah, you got into the technical complications we had with this game. How did you feel about that one, Drew?
Well, that was the biggest downfall of the game currently right now in the early access stages of Rogue Company. The fact that we do enjoy the gameplay and with the experience that we're having, the problem is connecting with all of us was an absolute nightmare. The connectivity issues were anything from dropping players in the lobby to not being able to connect at all, and load times were really, really long. And there's a lot of people right now, like if I go on Twitch, take a look, there's about 30 some odd thousand people playing. So to get into a game shouldn't take all that long, but there are some early access glitches, and that's the biggest thing that we're experiencing and kind of holding us back from really enjoying the game. If they can get the lobbies sorted out and the fact that we can jump in and have a great time, then I think we're off to something solid. But as of right now, we're having a big problem with the lobbies and just the fact that we're not able to connect and group up and continue on. But when we do get into the game, then everything runs really smooth. We're able to pick our characters, get our loadouts, get our weapons of choice, you know, earn the money. Shooting feels great. The combat mechanic behind the game of Rogue Company, I thought it was solid. I enjoy the characters. All the characters are unique too. I love the fact
there's a lot of characters.
There were a lot of characters, right?
Yeah.
And they're all unique. You don't get a lot of the similar styles. They don't all look the same. Like, we just jumped into Hyperscape and they're all custom fitted with the same outfit, which kind of takes a little bit away from the experience. Where we jump into Rogue Company, every single character looks different. And I can't wait for the fact when they start updating the game itself and allow me to completely customize my character. That will be sick.
Oh yeah, man. I'm actually excited to see what the battle pass, if you know, assuming that they're gonna have a battle pass with this style of game. I'm excited to see what all the characters are, because I really liked even like the voiceovers. Each of them they have their own little bio. It's pretty cool, man. I really enjoyed this title, except for, like you said, man, those connectivity issues. We only got about, what, 3 or 4 matches maybe in the span of an hour and a half or so.
Hour and a half we played.
Hour and a half, sorry.
And we had 3 games overall. I played 2 separately on my own. Scott, did you get in before this, or just tonight as we got grouped up together?
No, it was just grouping up, so that was my first impression of the game. And even when we grouped up and everything was working well, it didn't appear that it was working well. We kind of just had to just let the game load, and then eventually, you know, somebody would pop in and fill up our team, and that worked out. But it was hard to read if it was actually gonna work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right now they have the ability for you to go out and buy the Founders Pack, and there are different stages for those Founder Packs, and those Founder Packs unlock different rogue agents that you're able to use and go out in the battlefield with. And it also brings the fact that you're able to have cross-play and cross-save, which is fantastic. So if I'm going to play on Xbox, you guys play on PlayStation, and someone else plays on Epic Games Store. And I think we kind of felt that as we were playing as well. When we were on Xbox, we could tell we were playing against PC players, and that was a big downfall, I guess, on our own ability, and that you kind of get that sense of PC is just different than consoles. So we went in and were able to change the functionality of cross play, so we were able to stay on the console side more and focus on that and have a better time and kind of be able to survive a little bit longer. But there's definitely some good players out there, and even though you do get whomped sometimes, like that sniper shot, I got picked off instantly. One shot, I was down. Like, that was it, I was done. But it was so good to get in there and learn the abilities. Each of them, like you said, Scott, they have one ability, one passive, and it's just a matter of the more we play, the more comfortable we're going to get with these rogue agents and stuff. I think the game is off to a solid start. It's just got a bit of a rough kind of launch party.
The invasion's begun, Scott. It's time to destroy all humans.
Let's do it.
Masters welcome you.
So, Scott, this week we got to check out a reboot of an old game, Destroy All Humans. And this is an arcade alien invasion style game. And I say arcade because they didn't really change much from the original game. We're kind of following the same story, and we're just kind of getting an update on the controls and some of the UI features. But before we get into too much detail, what did you think jumping into this kind of wacky style game?
Well, I really had a good time. I thought about the times I'd played this when I was a kid, and I didn't really have like the full formed memories back then to really, what I was getting into this time around. So jumping into the gameplay of it, I remember that quick kind of destroy everything in the area and move on kind of minigame. I think that's what I've mostly played, but there's a lot more to this game than that, and let's get into it.
You've collected, and I think I've isolated the perfect subject for you to probe and vaporize. No, abduct and bring back to the mothership.
My way's more fun.
Abduct, not vaporize.
Okay, but humanity ain't gonna annihilate itself, all I'm saying.
Can I finish?
The humor is absolutely a selling point of this game. It's so great, just the voices and the way they talk about different events happening in the world. And also I noticed the voice actor for the alien that gives you directions and stuff, your leader, he's actually the guy from Invader Zim. It's the exact same voice, and that was super exciting for me once I noticed that one. But there's a lot of really fun, kind of zany moments where you're in disguise as another human and you're talking to humans trying to be normal human, and it's very, very awkward, and the humor is absolutely highlighted throughout the whole game. But there's a lot of different kind of gameplay sections, so I want to get into that. There's this stealth thing that you can do, that you take a person's skin and you just look like them, and you can have that cover blown. You have to read people's minds to keep that, refreshed, and that's the stealth kind of element to this game. But on top of that, you have just mayhem, just absolute carnage, where you're the alien just with your crazy weapons and just destroying like blocks at a time. It's really fun.
Yeah, you know what? They do highlight the destroy all humans aspect of this game, because, like you said, the weapons that you get in this game are, really out of this world. And I don't, all jokes aside on that, it is true. I mean, you've got these telekinesis powers where you can literally pick up anything, throw it into anything. I mean, you could pick up hay bales, set them on fire with electricity, and then throw them at something. Like, there's so many different combinations of wild things you can do in this game, and that's where it kind of leaves you that, your imagination to run wild. Yes, there's objectives you have to complete, but they don't necessarily say how you have to complete them. So you can go about them, however alien way possible you feel fit. And what I liked is because I didn't really totally remember this from the original game, but I know it was in there, is when you get to pilot your UFO. That's a pretty cool part of this game, because early on there's kind of this early part of one of the levels where you have to kind of attack or defend, I guess, the area you're in from some oncoming army units, whether it be tanks or foot soldiers, things like that. And you get into the UFO and you have the death ray, and it leaves the scorched earth behind, which I thought was absolutely awesome. Wherever this thing hits the ground, you could level a building and come back to it later, and that building's still going to be leveled, and the ground still may be, smoldering on fire. So like it's just cool stuff like that, where I thought it was really fun to be able to jump in and kind of get a different perspective of this game. Because if you think about it, having those two perspectives even back when this game originally came out would have been kind of like a special feature almost. So they kind of paid homage to it to just kind of clean it up and make it that much more fun to jump in when you do have those small parts where you are in your UFO. And I just thought that whole aspect of it was a blast, because it's cartoony whether you're up there or you're on the ground.
Yeah,
like you said,
they found a way.
So many fun things. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, this game.
Well, and they have a lot of kind of replayability to it too, so it's still jump in, jump out kind of action, and you can kind of just get into your aircraft and fly around if you want to now. It's kind of just parked somewhere in the world, and there's several different kind of enclosed areas that are like smaller open world kind of areas, but there's this kind of lineage that you can go through. You're getting all these rewards for beating missions or just horsing around and collecting DNA, and you can take that and upgrade your saucer or yourself with it, and that makes your weapons much more effective. It gives you kind of better abilities when it comes to mind control and stuff like that, and that's really interesting because it's just cleaned up. I don't really even remember that from the first game, but the fact that it's in there and it's in the menus, and the menus are much cleaner than they were, it really speaks to this proper remaster of this game, because they didn't change anything really. It just seems like they've kind of presented the best of it in a much better way. And even when it comes to the graphics, the scorched earth is just, it's beautiful. It actually looks really good. The buildings breaking apart and blowing up, again, looks really good. And it's just that attention to detail in this remaster really did it justice.
You know what? I couldn't agree with you more, Scott. Like, I'm not even gonna, correct anything you gotta say or change anything you said, because honestly, there's just a couple small things I wanted to touch on as far as maybe something I had a difficult time with, because overall, I think we both had a good time playing this game. But one thing I did notice, we were just talking about the UFO, is I did find it a little bit difficult to control when I first got in, because it's, we're used to these maybe 6-axis style flight sims, where there's a little more control. They kind of take some of the control out of your hands a little bit when it comes to actually, flying around, as far as changing the level and height that you're flying at in this, where it was just a little awkward. By no means is it difficult to get over. It was just when you first jump in, it was kind of like, oh, I feel like I didn't quite have the control I wanted to. But if you actually compare the control you have with the UFO now compared to what you had in the original game, it is a lot more smooth in this version of the game, especially when it comes to aiming that death ray around. So I just wanted to touch on that real quick, because honestly, as far as hang-ups in this game, I had pretty well nothing other than just a few little hiccups here and there, where maybe it was probably more me than anything else. Well, Scott, I think we got to park the UFO for a little bit, because we've had maybe too much fun destroying all humans, because we got to give this one a score.
Little green man in a flying saucer wiping out the best
this one, as a
infantry unit in the
remaster,
US
it
Army.
did all the right
Great,
things
good,
for me.
me too.
And it's
Green,
using really good
not
source
gray.
material, so
Don't
it's
be a
kind of
stiff.
hard to give this
You know what
anything
it
less
means?
than an 8.5.
Absolutely.
I think there's maybe just a few things they could have corrected, that camera and the flight controls, but I think it's just right about there.
You know what? I can't, totally agree completely with that score. I'm a little bit lower, but you know what? I think overall you nailed it. The remaster of this game, or the refresh we're getting, they did a great job. The story was already awesome. They didn't need to change that. They didn't. We got updated controls. The whole experience was a little bit more smooth, so it allowed you to enjoy it that much more. So I'm just right behind you with a 7.5.
Scientific research. The procedure will be protracted and invasive. Do you have any objections?
Great simplistic arcade-style gameplay with improvements from the original version. Fans of the original are definitely not going to want to miss this one.
Vaporized. I don't care how many stomachs you have. I don't have time for this.
There once was a game called Paragon, and with the rise of Fortnite, Epic shut it down. However, the assets were released, and now Omeda Studios have picked it up, and here comes Predecessor. Check out this interview. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Robbie, the founder of Omeda Studios, with a little game they're working on called Predecessor. Robbie, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So I want to talk about Predecessor and how it kind of came about, because your story, I think, is a little unique in the fact that the way you gathered your assets isn't exactly how you start your typical video game.
Yeah, so we basically came around after Epic Games decided to shut down Paragon. There was a small group of us who were extremely passionate about the project, about Paragon, that kind of had the technical ability to kind of build, I guess, games. I didn't think we'd ever get the true understanding of how complex it is to build a MOBA, but we thought, we could deliver something on that. So once Epic shut down Paragon and they announced they were going to release all the assets for the game to anyone developing on the Unreal Engine, we decided that we would give it a shot and see if we could kind of recreate that Paragon magic.
Basically what's happened now is you guys just broke your closed alpha. I jumped in over the weekend, had a great time back as Chimera, something I never thought I'd see the light of day, to be honest. So to jump back in and have that feeling, what was the reaction from everybody jumping into the game for the alpha?
Yeah, I think we've had it's been overwhelmingly positive. Like all the feedback we've gotten has been, this feels like Paragon. This brings back memories. The game feels pretty much like playing Chimera feels like Chimera. Yep. So it's been really, really positive, and I think that's all we really asked for, is we wanted to bring back that feeling of Paragon, to the people that kind of miss it. And I felt the same as you. I was I may never be able to play like Murdoch or play Chimera, and it might sound kind of silly, but that you definitely did have some sort of attachments to these characters, having played them for like hours on end. So just that feeling of being able to play your favorite hero again, and being able to give that to so many people, that was really cool. And the feedback on top of that has been just amazing.
What's the process like then, gathering assets from Epic to make your own version with Predecessor?
So they released a lot of the assets free through the Unreal Engine marketplace, so you can drop them into your game, but that doesn't really do much for you. Like, you can't hit play and now you're playing Paragon. There's a lot of work that goes into setting up the assets. For example, making Murdoch or Chimera, you get like a ton of animations, but the game doesn't know when you press this button what animation to play, how long the animation should play, should it do damage. The game doesn't know, so you have to tell it, I need it to do damage, I need these effects to play, I need it to interact with minions and heroes. So the assets are it's super useful that Epic have given them to us, but it's really like, that's 10% of the work done for us, and now we've got to complete 90% of the project. So it definitely gave us like a head start, but it still required a lot of work.
Now, how comfortable are you right now with the current state of the game, and what's the future plans for it?
So I think the alpha was kind of a good test to see what people felt of the current state of the game. I personally think there's always room to like improve. I think we're at a good point where I feel comfortable letting people try the game, but I don't know if this is. I don't think we're at the stage where the game's ready for 1 million players, for example. I think we've got a lot of work ahead of us to really polish up the game. And we always say, getting the game to feel 90% as good, like getting it to 90% is the easy part, but getting that extra 10% is the hardest part. So I feel like we've gotten that 90%, and we really want to polish that last 10%, but that takes a lot longer than the 90%. So I think we're in a good state now. I think the it's pretty smooth. I mean, you played it as well, so you can probably give like an unbiased opinion. But I think it's pretty smooth, and I think in the next few months we'll be really close to a really polished experience, and then from there it's more about like adding more content then.
Excellent. So are you looking for like an early access launch? Is that the game plan moving forward?
Yeah, I think we would kind of hope to reach early access maybe end of this year, early Q1 of next year. And that would just be the ideal scenario for us to kind of get more feedback from people, have the game up 24/7, and really iterate weekly like a lot of other MOBAs do.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Paragon was a free-to-play title on PC and PS4. Is that the game plan with Predecessor as well, or what's your monetary look into the game moving in the future?
Yeah, so we'd go the exact same route. I think free-to-play is really, the growth of like Fortnite, Warzone, and a lot of other games. I think free-to-play is definitely the way to go. And then in terms of monetization, we've released some of our own custom assets where we've redesigned like Murdoch, for example, from the ground up in like his own skin.
Super cool.
And so we would just monetize skins and various other things that MOBAs traditionally have, like emotes and whatever else they might have.
That's fair. What is the future of Predecessor look like right now?
So I'd say it looks positive but I think it looks more like we want to hit like an early access within the next 6 to 9 months. From there we want to really make sure that the core game loop is down, a lot of the key mechanics in the game, so like matchmaking, party system, ranked, and then also making sure that a lot of in-game content is in, so the jungle really feels more like a jungle. A lot of the stuff in the alpha was placeholder. A lot of things we had excluded just to make sure that the focus was on the feel of the game. But early access probably has more focus on content. We want to make sure that the game feels a lot more interactive. Our item system at the moment is just stats mostly, but we'll be introducing more effects such as like passive items, active items, to really make the game feel a lot more interactive and giving you as a player more choice. I think that's the plan over the next few months for early access. And then once we hit early access, it's just about adding more content on top of that, like adding more heroes, maybe introducing our own, and really building out what Predecessor should look, and really starting to build out what Predecessor should look 2 to 3 years from now.
Is the goal with Predecessor to make Paragon 2.0, or is it to make it your own? And what's different between the two?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for us, it's definitely to make Paragon, our own version of Paragon. Like, Epic had a vision for Paragon. We didn't necessarily agree with it, but it's like they've showed that there's definitely demand for a third-person MOBA, and now really we want to put our own vision. Like, what does a third-person MOBA look like? We've kind of got the outline of it, and now it's really for us to kind of, it's like building a house, right? They've given us the foundation, and now it's for us to decide how many bedrooms we want to put in it. What do we want the walls to look like? I think that's a really nice position to be in. And I think when we compare the differences, like what did Epic do and with their direction for Paragon, and why are we different? I think that's it's a tricky question to answer now, because the games probably to a lot of people look the same. But I think our vision that we have for 3 years down the line probably looks a lot different to what Epic had. I think Epic had, maybe it might be fair to say, 3 different visions for Paragon. Initially, it felt like, initially on Legacy, it felt more like a strategy game. And then, they switched to Monolith. And I felt like it felt more like an action game and maybe a strategy game too. And then, they flicked the switch even more and went into Overdrive, and it just felt like an action game that happened to have a card system and MOBA elements. Sure. I think for us, we really want to hit that strategical action part. We think that it's great having strategy, but the advantage of being third person is that you can immerse yourself in the action. It would be like playing chess in third person if you just had a strategy game. Like, there's no point making chess in third person because you're just moving pieces. But if the board was blowing up and there were tanks on it or whatever, and there was a lot more action, it would make sense to make the game in third person. So I think we really want to go for an action strategy. We have a vision where it's a lot more action and strategy, rather than being too much strategy and too much action. And then I think a lot of our focus would also be on, it took a long time for Epic to introduce like matchmaking, which ranked matchmaking, which I feel like in a MOBA probably leads to like poor retention and not great metrics, because inherently MOBAs are competitive games. So I want to play against people that are maybe not like try-harding, but I want them to be trying their best because I want to win. If I'm playing just a casual game, you might have some of the players messing about, which may ruin the experience for me. Although everyone's entitled to do what they want, but I think if you're playing ranked, you kind of want everyone to be on their best. So we would definitely look to bring in ranked as soon as we can, as soon as we felt the game was in a more stable position. That's fair. And I think focusing on those things sooner rather than later would just help the game grow quicker. And then maybe from there we'll really look at like, what do our customers think, what do our users think about the game, and I think they help guide the vision of the game too.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, excellent. Now, one last question: who's your favorite hero?
That's a tough one. Are we talking about heroes in the alpha or just in general?
Let's go in general, because Paragon was rather large and you do have all the assets and everything. So yeah, you have them all. Which one, Robbie?
I think Wraith was definitely my favorite. I think he's just a badass. He can shoot people through walls. He's got a nice long range gun, and he can go invisible. So I thought he was a pretty cool character design. He's definitely my favorite. How about you?
I am a jungler, so I'm in there with Chimera. But yeah, Wraith he was pretty wild too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks a lot, Robbie.
No, thanks for having me.
Feels so good to be back. Oh, that was a really good game though. That was one of the longer games I've had. That was really good.
All right, guys, you and I jumped into Worms Rumble. We had a blast with our latest Let's Play, checking out the beta for Worms. What you guys think of this new iteration? Worms always seems to kind of take the next step with the genre and its own series. What do you guys feel is moving next? Is it a good thing or not so good?
Well, buddy, I grew up playing Worms from the 64 days. I think that was my first one, Worms Armageddon.
Okay. Man.
And I loved it, man. 4-player, split screen, whatever.
Yeah.
Had a great time. Moved to Worms 3D, kind of moved on to this game now, and I could say it's totally worth it, man.
Yeah.
What a crazy, chaotic style of Worms that I've never seen before.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Scott, what about you?
I never really got into it before. I was just kind of like an observer on the outside. I played a couple of games here and there, mostly with a roommate or two. But then getting into this one, I like how they've changed it up. It's real time now. I love that, and it plays just way faster and way more intense. But it's the same kind of weird weapon system. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's definitely a different take than what it used to be. I'm gonna outdate both of you guys, man. Like, I'm back on PC with 2D turn-based side-scrolling thing. Like, it was completely different from what we're playing right now. Now it's a 32 battle system where you're kind of one team versus. No, it's not even teams yet. It was just basically last man surviving. The most kills, right?
Sorry.
Yeah, it was a free-for-all with 32 people in the match, and it's still got that Worms charm, and that's the biggest thing. It kept the personality that made Worms so special, and it just kept bringing it forward. And now it's brought us into Worms Rumble, and they're working on bringing over a battle royale version of it as well. That wasn't accessible for the beta, but we've had a great time jumping into Worms Rumble, and it was chaos from the minute we jumped in. And the fact that you lose the turn base and it's now, like you said, Scott, real time, right? So it was just instant mayhem, and it was so much fun to play.
You talk about it having that personality and Worms, and part of the personality is the mayhem, and the other part of it is just like the weird worm motion and movement and whatever. And they kind of somehow have kept that. There's no movement bar or anything like that, but you have a sprint bar, and depending on how you slap up against a wall or if you're sprinting against a wall, you react differently. So there's this definite ceiling of advantage where you can learn how to move around the map way better. It's really cool that way.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because in all the other Worms games, typically you could destroy your environment. This one you can't, but at the same time, the map design, I mean, it's great. There's all these corridors where you can't really see until you enter the ventilation system, and then it's like, oh, there's 3 guys dueling in here.
It was pretty cool.
It's so funny.
There was the bathroom stall. I kept going down the one bathroom stall, and Corey pointed out you can actually hide in the other 2 and watch people jump down the shaft, right? It was like, oh, man, that was pretty sneaky. So there is a bunch of strategy kind of going into this map design and stuff that you're able to maneuver in a way that just wasn't possible in Worms before. So it's so well done, and for just a short beta, I was really impressed where they're taking the game and moving forward with it, and I loved it.
Yeah, man, and even the customization, they actually bring quite a few options. They don't give you too much off the hop, but you're meant to just kind of play, and after every match you're pretty much give 1 to 3 items, sometimes even more or less.
Yeah.
But it's it's very giving, and they have some of the classic voices like the sassy worms or like the heroic worms. I can't wait to get like some of the different languages out there that I used to love listening to.
What do you guys want to see out of Worms Rumble moving forward?
Well, I know there's a team deathmatch thing coming on. That sounds really cool to me.
Yeah.
32-player battle royale. That's gonna be really, really hard to get really good at. But that's gonna be interesting to watch.
Yeah.
What I'm hoping is that they're gonna have maybe some different kind of levels and themes.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a couple different more items and weapons they drop in there, because I know there's a lot. Like, there's an extensive list for Worms weapons, and we've only really seen I want maybe 6 or 7 different things.
Sure.
Yeah,
maybe
they kind of have
you
kind of have your standard weapons like the shotgun and the SMG or the assault rifle, and then just your classic banana bomb and then holy hand grenade, which is like, I'm so glad at least those are there, because those are probably my favorite things from way back.
In previous Worms, you're able to actually create your own level, so I'm curious to see if they're going to bring that forward and allow users to work on building the community and the fact that you can build your own levels and see what they can do and come up with other creations and then be able to download those and play those with your friends and up against others. All in all, though, I think we all enjoyed Worms Rumble, and I think it's just definitely one we should all be keeping our eye on in the future.
Yeah, definitely.
Alright, Scott, we're flying on this one, but not too far.
Well, Nate, we're taking a look at Everspace 2. Well, it's an alpha build. This game is coming out in early access on Steam in December of 2020 this year, but we had a little sneak peek look at it, and what would you say your first impressions of this game are?
Alright, so visually, it looks really good. My handle couldn't actually, take the top graphics, but from what I could see and what you've shown me, it looks really good. So I'm gonna have to give it that. But there's not a lot to the alpha build, so there's about 6, maybe 7 planets, not even, that we can explore, each with their own set of missions or a series of mini quests and kind of things to just explore and mine. So I don't know, it feels a lot like the first one though. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I've played the first one quite a little bit, but it is a roguelike, and I'm not sure if they plan to keep the roguelike elements in this one. The first one had a lot of, you could clear the area, move on through the gate to the next area, and it was a very closed space that was very controlled, and waves of enemies coming at you kind of thing. And you had options to do different kind of exploration, but this game seems to be all exploration, where it's a lot of space, kind of fields of asteroids, but it's very loose and open. You do have a kind of jumping system to maneuver to these different kind of locations, as you said, but it's very open feeling, and that makes it feel pretty empty, in my opinion. Now, they do say right when you load this game up that this is an alpha build and that everything is subject to change, and that this is just a kind of sneak peek. Don't expect this to be everything in the game, but I have to say that there is that feeling of, is this really the first game just open world? I'm not quite sure how to gauge it.
A few things that are actually different with this: they have the home base, which you can kind of repair your ship or refuel it, or just actually store items that you find along the way. And another cool thing is that there's actually 3 ships that you get to pick from. The fighter is, well, it speaks for itself in its name, and then the Sentinel, which is the class that they start you with, which is, seems like a pretty overall average aircraft. And the third one, well, it just brings more variations in weapons and, storage space. So I did enjoy that for sure. Unfortunately, there is no options to upgrade as of yet. There is a little section in the menu that says management and upgrades or whatever, but it's not there, unfortunately. So I can't really speak on behalf of that side of it. You do actually level up your ship, and you have a gain experience in this game, which I thought was also kind of fun, because while I was exploring, man, I got intercepted by these guys, and they were like 2 levels higher than me, and I almost died. I actually had to evade and fly around this asteroid, and it was hard because when you're trying to enter hyperdrive or enter hyperspace, you can't get shot at or else it depletes your meter. So it was pretty intense. I actually got out of it, but then they intercepted me after that again. But anyway, it's pretty funny and just some cool things that you can do in this game.
Yeah, that's good. That's the action that I'm really familiar with from the first game. You get overwhelmed by like some really strong and enemy craft very early on in those games, and that's kind of what leads you to jump to the next area just to escape. And that's kind of your break between levels in the way that a roguelike would work. There's always been this customization angle to the game where you upgrade your pilot and your aircraft kind of separately, so I'm expecting to see that return, but like you said, everything being shaded out and blocked at the moment, I'm really just left to speculate on what I think is going to be there. This game is not where it needs to be for us to review it, but we did want to take a pre-look at this while we had the opportunity, because we're either gonna recommend or not recommend this game.
Well, man, I would have to definitely say wait till closer to December for sure. I can't say I recommend this right now. If you're kind of itching to play this, pick up the first one. You'll probably have a great time with that. It's a full-fledged game and it's not that expensive right now. So as of right now, I'm gonna have to say not recommend, but time will tell.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. There's a couple things about this game that just aren't really exciting me yet because I haven't seen enough to compel me. So I can't recommend the finished product with the idea of the game that I have now. And the demo is easy enough to try out, so maybe check that out, but I can't recommend too much this game because the first one is really action-packed, really good, and this one has a lot to live up to, so maybe I recommend that one instead. In this current state, we cannot recommend Everspace 2. Future updates are expected, and we will have the full review at a later date.
Alright, I'm back with this week's mobile mention, and I'm talking about Command & Conquer Rivals. Now this game, it struck a lot of great nostalgia with me. It has a lot of the units and characters from the original games, both the factions, the GDI and the NOD. Oh, it's great. So, diving into this is a real-time tactical card-based system where you have to launch 2 missiles at the enemy, or make sure that doesn't happen to you. And in doing so, you need to hold at least 1 to 4 zones, depending on the maps. They actually vary. So it's pretty cool. There's already a lot of strategy involved where you have to hold the most points, leading the missile in your favor. But the huge catch is the enemy can quickly steal the points and then turn the tide in their favor, launching the missile towards you.
Unit lost. Double time. Nuclear warhead launched.
We've got this.
Major structural damage perceived. Unit lost.
Command & Conquer Rivals only brings one mode and is strictly PvP, but it is a lot of fun and has a lot of strategy. You get to pick between a lot of units, customizing your own build like the way you want, whether or not it's anti-air heavy based. Maybe you strictly want to use aircraft and use the tech industry and use the biggest and the baddest of units. It's entirely up to you. There's so much to do in this game. I suggest you check this one out. So I'm back with your Rainbow Six Siege Canadian Division Game Day 4 coverage. And this is a pretty big game. Mirage, if they win this game, they get to go to the North American League Finals to represent Canada. But if Altiora wins, well, that's going to change some things. So moving forward into this game, it actually was a 3-map outcome. So, like most of the games, it was a pretty long one. And at first, Mirage, they weren't looking so hot. The first map picked was Oregon, and that was by Altiora, and that really showed because they've played on this map multiple times and they've done fairly well, so it wasn't really much of a surprise, and they actually won this one. It wasn't looking so for a little while, but ultimately Mirage just looked pretty lackluster. They came out fairly strong on defense with a 4-2 start, but Altiora, their defense was, I guess, just that much better. They really showed that they could contend with Mirage with a 7-4 victory. Now moving into map 2, Villa. This was, wow, this is not quite the same outcome. We had a 6-0 start for Mirage, and they picked again to start on defense, and wow, Altiora just really could not stand a chance. Once they had defense, they came out with 2 wins, but it really was not enough with a 7-2 victory for Mirage. Now the third and final map was Cafe, and again Mirage started on defense. They really seemed to like to play on defense, and they seemed to do pretty well. They had a good start with 4-2, which is pretty standard. Cafe is a pretty defender strong map, but then moving forward, Mirage they came out on top with a 7-3 victory. They solidified their spot in first place representing Canada. So the next game, it doesn't really matter as much as this one does, but it's still going to be pretty good with Altiora up against Nordic Esports, and this is more for bragging rights and for a higher prize pool. So stay tuned on next week's episode and I'll get your coverage for the next game.
That'll wrap up this week's episode. Thank you so much for sticking around and watching. Don't forget, you can be a part of the show by going to InsideTheGame.ca and submitting your clip. This week, we've got Scott, one of our own, hitting up in Rogue Company. If you want to be a part of the community, you can follow us over on Twitch at the official ITG, Twitter, Discord, and of course, YouTube and Facebook. Until next week, thanks again, and we'll see you next week inside the game.